Hello, and welcome to the Gaming Resume's first All Hands podcast. My name is Devin Rogers, and I want to thank you for tuning in. This has been a dream of mine for quite a long time, and I'm really excited to finally be able to do something like this, so I hope you all enjoy it. The Gaming Resume is a new video game website that uses a workplace motif as the backdrop for discussion, and you'll see examples of how that works throughout this podcast. We have a few different segments in today's show, but being that this is the pilot podcast, I'm not sure what's going to stick, so we'll see how things go and determine what we'll bring back next time. So the first segment of today's show is titled The Gaming Resume, just like the website, and the idea behind this segment is we're going to look at a resume for an upcoming video game. And based on that resume, we're going to determine if it is a must-hire, a potential hire, or a pass. So I don't play any of these games ahead of time. I don't have a preview build. So I'm going completely off of stuff on the internet, which you will soon see, and to make a determination if we are going to play the game or not. So there's 3 different pieces to the resume. There's a cover letter, there's the resume itself, and then there's some referrals. So first, let's start with the cover letter. Dear Mr. Rogers, congratulations on your inaugural podcast. I was surprised to see you had yet to play any video games released in 2017, and I hope to be considered for a spot in your playlist. I am the next entry in a legendary franchise, one that is known the world over for its adventurous gameplay, endearing characters, and iconic music. Many of the games in my franchise have received perfect review scores, and their influence has been felt throughout the industry, as noted by the developers of Grand Theft Auto, Final Fantasy, Shadow of the Colossus, and countless others. But I carry more weight on my shoulders than just living up to the quality of my predecessors. The short-term success of the platform I am launching on depends in part on my ability to entertain gamers with an epic and memorable adventure. I am confident that I will provide dozens of hours of playtime and that I will be a top contender for 2017's Game of the Year awards. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. So we're starting things off with The Legend of Zelda, arguably one of the biggest games to come out in 2017, as the internet would have you think, and quite honestly, they're probably right. But let's take a look at the resume. So the idea behind this resume is that we're not going to look at the game itself, but rather we're going to look at the talent behind the game to determine if this game has potential. So, looking at the resume, The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild is a single-player action game developed by Nintendo EPD, or Entertainment Planning and Development. It is releasing on March 3rd, 2017 for the new Nintendo Switch, and it is also coming to the Nintendo Wii U. So I've got 5 names listed here, and each of them is involved with The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. We're going to take a look at the last game that they had a hand in. We're going to look at Metacritic scores, both the critic score and the user score, and we're going to average everything out to see what kind of talent is working on this game. And I'm going to apologize way in advance because I know I'm going to butcher most of these names. So let's get started. The first name on the list is Hidemaru Fujibayashi. He is the director for Breath of the Wild, and he had previously directed The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, which I personally haven't played, and that game released in 2011 for the Nintendo Wii. It received a Metacritic critic score of 93 and a user score of 7.9. The producer for Breath of the Wild is Eiji Aonuma. He had previously, most recently, produced The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD, which released in 2016 for the Nintendo Wii U. It received a Metacritic critic score of 86 and a user score of 8.4. Twilight Princess HD is also another game I have not played, In fact, the last Zelda game I played was Wind Waker when it released on the GameCube. Just so you know. Moving right along, the lead programmer is Takuhiro Dota. Previously, the program supervisor also on Twilight Princess HD, as noted, and the scores for those were 86 and 8.4 as we just discussed. The lead artist for Breath of the Wild is Satoru Takezawa. He was previously the HD refining art director for The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, which released in 2013 for the Nintendo Wii U. It received a Metacritic critic score of 90 and a user score of 8.3. And lastly, the composer for Breath of the Wild is Manaka Kataoka, previously the composer for Animal Crossing New Leaf, which released in 2013 for the Nintendo 3DS. It received a Metacritic critic score of 88 and a user score of 8.7. Now, a quick point to make, she had also done some Animal Crossing music for the Smash Brothers release on the Nintendo Wii U. I did not include that as her most recent game because she only provided a small sample of music for the game, whereas for Animal Crossing New Leaf, that was her most recent big composition. So that was the one that we went with. Not that I think it would matter. If we look at the average critic score across 5 people, it comes out to 88.6 and an average user score of 83.4. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Hey, Devin, does that mean that you think Breath of the Wild is going to score an 8.8 or an 8.3? No, I'm just using the previous scores of the games that the talent for Breath of the Wild has worked on to kind of get a target based on who's working on this game. What kind of game can we expect? And with scores above 80 or 8.0, this is a must hire. Anything that's 8 and above, you got to play it. But before we make that final judgment call, we do have one other thing we need to look at. We need to look at referrals. So there are 3 referrals that came with this resume, and these are all quotes from gaming websites. The first one is from Engadget, and they said, regarding Breath of the Wild, "This is a challenging, engrossing, and truly beautiful game. 5 hours in, it feels like a contender for the strongest game Nintendo has launched a console with since Super Mario 64. If you weren't thinking about playing it before now, I implore you to reconsider that thought." That is some high praise. This next one is from GameSpot. "Breath of the Wild embodies the freedom and danger that made the first Zelda game so enthralling, and captures the feeling of awe that came when Ocarina of Time hit the scene, in this case by layering unspoken variables into seemingly every facet of the game." And lastly, from Game Central, "We're doing our best to find faults here, but the truth is we're hugely impressed. At this stage, we'd be shocked if this didn't turn out to be the best Zelda since Ocarina of Time. It may even surpass it, and since many still regard that as the best video game ever made, it becomes almost impossible to overstate just how good Breath of the Wild is." Now, to me that sounds like a bunch of hyperbole, but at the same time, it's Zelda. The talent's there. I think Nintendo has been working on this for a long time, knowing that this needs to knock it out of the park. They are making a statement by having the Nintendo Switch launch with Zelda. Granted, for the Switch to really survive, or at least get off the ground, it needed a game like Zelda, but, this was supposed to be out on the Wii U, and I think by postponing it till it could come out on the Switch was a great move, not just for the Switch as a console, but I think it's a testament to what this game is going to be like. So moving right along, so that was the gaming resume. I hope you all enjoyed that. We'll be doing one of those in every podcast, no matter what. That is the namesake of our website, so you can expect that segment to reappear again in the future. The next segment is called Upcoming Priorities, and this is where we take a look at the games coming out next month, in this case, March 2017. And I've picked out 5 from the list, and these are the 5 that if I had money to go buy 5 games in March and I had the time to play all of them, these would be the 5 I would get. And I have them prioritized in order. So the first one I'm going to talk about is number 5, working my way up to number 1. Some of these games I don't know a whole lot about other than quality and some story bits, but I try to stay pretty spoiler free, realizing now as I'm working on this podcast that's something I may have to give up going forward, but for now we'll go with what we got. So at number 5, releasing on March 28th, is Parappa the Rapper Remastered. Now this is a game that I did not play on the original PlayStation when it came out in the late 90s, but I did have a demo disc that included this game, the first level of this game, and it was a blast. I don't know how many times I replayed that first level over and over and over again. I didn't at the time quite understand how rhythm games worked, so I kind of freestyled a lot and seemed to fail quite often. But I'm really interested to see if the game holds up. I'm interested to play it again because I remember how catchy that first level was. I can only imagine the rest of the game is catchy as well. And having played games like Guitar Hero and Rock Band, I'm really excited to see how it holds up as a rhythm game. So we'll see where that goes. I don't know if I will have time to play it because there are so many games coming out. As was mentioned in the cover letter for Zelda Breath of the Wild earlier, I have not played any games from 2017 yet. Zelda will probably be my first one, so we'll see where things go. At number 4, coming out on March 7th, is Lego Worlds. Now, this is a Minecraft clone that's not really a Minecraft clone. I mean, it is, but Minecraft itself, I think, you could say took some inspiration from Legos. I mean, Legos have been around for such a long time. Minecraft just kind of took that creativity and building into the digital world, into the gaming world. Lego Worlds doesn't have crafting like Minecraft does, but it does have huge randomized worlds to explore, lots of different biomes. It has a currency for purchasing items, lots of different NPCs, monster types. It's got mounts and vehicles, and just with all the different Lego pieces that you can collect and use to build, I think it's going to be just as fun, if not more fun, than Minecraft. We'll see. It's very cheap. I think you can pick it up for $25 on Amazon right now if you have Prime. It's been out on Steam for a while in the early access, but it's finally coming out officially, and it will also be coming to consoles, so it's something to look out for. And number 3 on the list is Mass Effect Andromeda. This comes out March 21st, and admittedly, I'm a bit skeptical of this game, but it's hard to deny Mass Effect. I loved the first game. That game holds a very special place in my heart. The second game trumped it in every single way. I mean, the second game was just amazing. The third game was pretty great. The ending, whatever, it didn't hurt the game for me personally, as much as it did for others. But by the time the third one came around, the glory of the second game had kind of worn off. So, I don't know, I guess I just kind of was a little lukewarm to Mass Effect 3, not because it was bad, but just because it didn't do enough to really change things up for me. I've not really watched Mass Effect Andromeda all that much, although what I have seen has been just kind of more of the same, just with, fresher coats of paint. It's been a few years. I am looking forward to this game, but I am keeping my expectations in check so as not to expect something like Mass Effect 2 levels of quality. I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised. At number 2 is Nier Automata. Nier Automata comes out March 7th. This is another game I don't know too much about. I didn't play the demo on purpose because I didn't want to spoil anything for me. This is a game that when it was announced at E3, I believe, it looked awesome, and I know that Nier has a cult following. It's a game that I've wanted to play but just never could get around to. So this was a game that kind of came out of left field when it was announced. So I kind of watched it with some curiosity. It's got platinum behind it, so you know the action's going to be great. And allegedly, there's a huge focus on story, which is something that's my number one thing in games is story. So I'm very excited about this. We'll see where it goes. And lastly, number one, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, coming out March 3rd. As we've already discussed, this game's going to be awesome. I'm not sure it's going to be a 10 out of 10 based on what little of it I've seen. Due mostly in part to the visuals. I think there's probably going to be some frame rate issues or something that's going to prevent the visuals from being a 5 out of 5, which is going to probably prevent the whole game, or what should prevent the whole game from being a perfect 10 out of 10. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, Breath of the Wild is going to be amazing. Can't wait to play it. Comes out next week, or this week by the time you hear this podcast. So the next segment is called Staff Notes. It's kind of like current events, news stories. Just have one to discuss today, and probably not at length. And that is regarding the Nintendo Switch, specifically the Joy-Cons. There's been reports from some of the gaming journalists who have had a chance to use the Nintendo Switch and play Zelda that the Joy-Cons have some connectivity issues, specifically the left Joy-Con. Polygon reported on it, Kotaku reported on it, some other outlets reported on it, having problems with the left Joy-Con just becoming non-responsive. I believe there's a website called Game Explain, and they had a video that showed it in motion on video how it doesn't work. And what they showed was covering up the controller with your hand reduces the connectivity so that it's kind of jumpy. And at one point, the person on video put the controller behind their back, and it pretty much stopped working, period. Now, he was just using the controllers, the Joy-Cons, without connecting them to a controller. And allegedly, the charging, I forget what it's called, the dock that they will plug into to make a one-piece handheld controller, the charging version of that amplifies the signal, and there aren't any issues when the Joy-Cons are connected to that. However, that does not come in the box. The Pro Controller does not come in the box. So, out of the box, potentially, there's going to be some Joy-Con connectivity issues. We'll see what happens if that is true. We'll see what Nintendo will do to compensate, if they're going to do a swap out, if they'll just send everybody a Joy-Con replacement. We'll see what happens. We'll see if those are actually in the final build. We don't know, or at least I do not know, if the builds that are being used for previews are the final builds or not, but we shall see. The next segment, that was a very quick segment. I hope to have some better news next time to talk about. The next segment, and this is probably the last segment, is called Forecasting. And in this segment, I'm going to pose a question. I'm going to do my best to answer it. And then once the answer is revealed in the future, as you will see, based on how I answered, correctly or incorrectly, will determine my next gaming live stream. So let's just start and you'll see how this is going to work. So the question is, will Mass Effect Andromeda on the PlayStation 4 receive a higher or lower Metacritic score than Mass Effect 3 on the PlayStation 3? The Mass Effect 3 actually received a 93 from critics on Metacritic, and I'm actually kind of shocked by that. I don't remember Mass Effect 3 being a 9.3, a 93. Regardless of what happened with the ending, it's a game that, honestly, I feel it was kind of forgettable. It was great. I enjoyed my time with it. I know I did. But when I think back on Mass Effect, I can remember Mass Effect 2 pretty vividly, but I don't remember a whole lot about Mass Effect 3. So I was kind of surprised when I was doing my research on this to find out that it received a 93. So I actually think Mass Effect Andromeda, while it's going to probably be a great game, at least I hope it will be, I think it's going to score lower than a 93. I just don't see it being. I think the high of Mass Effect has gone. I think that people are going to try and compare it to Dragon Age Inquisition, which I enjoyed that game very much. It was not a 93, although it did win Game of the Year that year at the Game Awards. Um, I don't see Mass Effect 3 getting to the same heights as Mass Effect 3 did, apparently. But I don't see it getting to the same heights as Mass Effect 2 or even maybe Mass Effect 1. I don't know what the score was on that. I should have looked that up. But 93 in this current climate with games, I think a 93 is going to be way too high. So we'll see. So if I'm right and it scores lower than Mass Effect 3, I will stream 1 hour of Titan Souls for the PlayStation 4 on a to be determined date. Titan Souls is a game I have not played. I've wanted to play it for a long time. I have it through PlayStation Plus, so it's something that I would love to play. We'll be playing it for an hour if I'm right. If I'm wrong, I will be streaming 1 hour of Guardians for the PlayStation 4. Not to knock on Color Guardians, man, I can't say it, but it's not a game that looks very appealing to me. I'm sure it's great for people that like to play it, I guess. But yeah, if I'm wrong, I will stream an hour of that. So on Sunday, March 26th, which should be a few days after the release of Mass Effect Andromeda, I will announce the result. So I'm sure there will be reviews pouring into Metacritic over time, but when I look at the score on Sunday, March 26th, at that point in time, whatever the score is, that's the score I'm going to go by. If it's 93 or higher, or I'm sorry, yes, if it's 93 or higher, then I will be playing Color Guardians, fat chance. If it's less than 93, I will be playing Titan Souls, and I will be streaming that on Twitch, and I will be sending out a link to that stream and a date as we get closer. So that wraps things up. Thank you very much for tuning in. I had a lot of fun doing this, and as I said at the beginning, this is something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. I hope to have some guests on in the future. I know that having a one-person, one-voice podcast isn't as exciting as hearing multiple opinions go back and forth live, hearing genuine reactions to people's opinions. So we'll see if we can get there. There's a lot of things that we got to do to make that happen, but it's something I'm committed to doing. So we will get there eventually. Again, my name is Devin Rogers. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you will come back to the Gaming Resume. I hope you will continue listening to the All Hands podcast, and for now, it's time to get back to work. Take care. The Gaming Resume would like to thank Kevin MacLeod for allowing us the use of Digital Lemonade, which is the music you heard at the beginning and ending of this podcast. Kevin MacLeod can be found at incompetech.com. The use of Digital Lemonade is licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license.